guys, so I'm just going to really quickly show you how you would create a piece of crochet to then wrap around your polystyrene wreath or whatever it is that you're using. So again, I'm using one of these polystyrene wreath from Hobbycraft, which again is a UK store, but you will be able to pick these up in almost any craft supply place. So I'm going to be using Shapey's Colour Crafter. So this is just an ordinary acrylic yarn. I've obviously got some Christmassy colours. I've got my white, my green and my red. I will link down below where you can purchase these yarns from as well. It is a lovely and really soft acrylic yarn. I really do like them. So I'm going to start with my green just because it's a little easier to see than the white. And I'm just using a 4mm hook for this, but that's just because it's what it recommends for this particular yarn. You would just use whatever hook was recommended for your yarn. So to start off with, you're just going to create a chain. So you're going to obviously need your slip knot to start with. And if you're not sure on how to do that, just nip and check my Absolute Beginner series, and there is a nice slow tutorial on there for how to do that. So to start off with, you want to create a base chain which will fit around your inner wreath, whatever it is that you're going to use. So there is obviously no set amount that you would chain. It would just chain relatively loosely until you get to a length that will fit nicely around whatever it is that you're using for your centre bit. And every so often you're just going to stop, obviously, and just see how it looks. So I'm just going to keep going just for a little bit longer for this one. I'm going to stop there again for a second, and then you're just going to wrap it around your wreath. Just, obviously you can't count the tail end, so I think that will be perfect. I'm at the length that I want now, that I need, so I'm just going to add 2 more chains onto the length, and then I'm going to start working my way back along my foundation chain. So I'm going to be using half treble crochets. Now remember, that's half treble in the UK. In the US this will be your half double crochet. This is a complete personal preference. You may want to do rows of double crochet, but I like to do half treble purely because it builds that little bit faster. But if you want a really tight stitch so that you absolutely definitely won't see any of the wreath showing through, then you would probably want to use double crochet. That's UK double, US single. So if you wanted to do a piece of crochet that is made up entirely of double crochets, then you can obviously do that. And if you're not sure how to do that, then just nip across and check out my double crochet tutorial in my Absolute Beginner series. But if you're going to do the half treble, then you can just stick with me for now. So I'm going to be working into the 3rd chain from the hook. So this is 1, 2 and 3. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into that 3rd stitch, yarn over and pull up, and I have my 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3, and again into the next one. And you're literally going to work your entire row all the way back to where your slip knot is, doing half treble crochets, 1 into every stitch along. And again, if you're not sure how to do a half treble row, then do go and check out my tutorial for it. There is one on my channel, but I'm just going to do it relatively quickly with you now because it is just mainly to get the technique of how to do your colour change, how to build up your rows, and then obviously how to attach it around your wreath. So if you want to keep doing this 1 in every stitch until you get back to where your slip knot is, and that's where I'll meet you in just a second. So I've completed that all the way along my original foundation chain, and I'm just going to pull out slightly, and this is a good time to bring back your wreath and just double check that it does go around, and meet where you want it to without any gaps, or if it's too tight then you would have to just undo it and add a few more chains onto that original foundation chain. So we're ready now to move on to the next row. I'm going to do 3 rows of each colour, but you can do as many or as few rows as you like in each colour, but I'm personally going to do 3 of each. So I'm ready to move on to row 2 now, so I'm not going to chain any, I'm just literally going to turn it around. Into this very first chain just here, we're going to work our stitches. Instead of chaining and turning, we're going to work our stitch after we've turned. So you want to insert your hook straight into that stitch. Again, this is exactly the same as it is on my Absolute Beginner series, so if you want to go and check that out. So we're literally going to do a double crochet, and then into the left hand side of this stitch you're going to insert your hook once more, yarn over and pull up and do another double crochet, and that just gives us a nice wide stitch instead of a narrow chain 3, and it just fills out the space a little more. So now we're going to continue working our half trebles all the way across this row, and then I will meet you back when you get towards the end of this row, just to firm up the very last stitch placement with you so that you don't start dropping any stitches. One thing I will just say is if you're planning on doing a set amount of rows in each colour, there is just one factor that you need to bear in mind. You want to finish on exactly the same colour as what you started with. So obviously I'm starting with the green, so I want to finish with the green. So that will mean that I need to add on a row of green onto whatever I finish on. So I will finish on white, but then I will add 1 row of half treble crochets onto the top of that white and then join them together with the beginning of this green. So for this section of green I am only going to be doing 2 rows. Even though I want to have an equal 3 of each colour, I will only do 2 rows at the very start in this green, because I will have 1 other row of green at the other end of my piece of work. So just bear that in mind if you're planning on having a set number of rows for each colour, that you just need to make sure that you start off with a shorter amount of whatever colour you've chosen, because you will have 1 row of this at the other end. I really hope that that makes sense. So I'm nearing the end of this green row now. So just doing my last half treble on top of the last half treble from the previous row, but then I still have this funny little chain 2 from where we did our turn at the very beginning. So you want to yarn over and make sure that you do work into the top of that last chain 2. And because I'm doing half trebles and I want to change colour now, I'm going to stop here with my 3 loops. And if you're not sure, again, on your colour changes or anything, then just nip across and check out my colour changing tutorial on my beginner series. But I will just do this one very quickly with you now. So I've got my new colour, I'm going to pop it on, and I'm going to pull through all 3. Oops, got a bit of green. Pull through all 3 of those stitches. And then I'm going to snip off my green. I don't need to leave a very long tail for this section, so I'm just going to snip off. And then I'm going to tie my colour change together with these little loose ends here. I will tie on. Now you can work the colour change into your work as you go, but I'm going to leave mine hanging loose just so that it doesn't get in the way. So I'm not going to chain, I'm literally just going to turn around, and then again into this very first stitch just here, I'm going to pop my hook into that first stitch and do a double crochet, and then again into the left hand side of the stitch and do another double crochet. And I'm now ready to work along. You just need to make sure that every single colour change that you do, when you get to the end of the colour change, so when I get to the end of my red and I change to my white, I will need to leave a long red tail. You want to leave long tails because that is what you're going to use to sew your 2 sides of work together around your wreath when you get to that point. So you want to make sure that when you're changing colour, the yarn that you're snipping off at the top of the colour section that you've just done, that you need to leave a fairly long tail to use to sew up at the end. I'm not going to do any more of the actual stitches with you now because I've done the stitches that you need to do. I've done the colour change with you, and I've done how to start and finish each row. So that is it for the stitches that I will do with you, and I will meet you now once you have gotten to the length that you need for your wreath. So when it comes to the length that you need to do, you want to get your wreath, your centre part, whatever it is you're using, and literally just wrap, hold it at one end so that the ends are nearly meeting in the middle there, and pull what you've made around. And you want them obviously to meet at this end here, but you want to have to pull it a little bit. You don't want it to reach too easily, because that means that when you tie the centre circle bit here, it will be quite loose and baggy. So you do want to have to pull it to make it join all the way around. But once you can do that, then you can just finish off. That is fine. And so I've gotten to the point where, if you remember at the beginning, I was saying that I'd done 2 rows of the green, and then I have finished with 1 row of green because I was doing 3 rows of each colour. So that'll be a nice uniform width all the way around now. And I've also gone along and I have weaved in my short tail ends. So you remember we're leaving long tail ends, 1 for each colour change. As you can see, I've got a long tail end for each of my colour changes. Obviously, because I've done an odd number of rows, my colour changes, my ends alternate to each side. So once you've gotten to your end length that you want to just fasten off. So I'm just making a loop with the end that I've just finished with, and I'm pulling that tail end through just to tie that off. So that is my end now secured there. So I've got the end here where I've just fastened off. I apologise if the lighting's not quite as good now, but it is dark outside now, but I wanted to get this tutorial done for you. I'm going to ignore this green section just for now, and I'm going to do this section here at the very end. I'm going to move across to the white section, and that is where I'm going to start sewing together. So like I say, ignore the very last end that you've done, because we're going to stitch that bit together once we reach back around this end, and then we will go around and tie the whole thing together. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to thread up my white. So if you've changed colour a few times, just go to your nearest colour change to the very end. And you're going to obviously turn the wreath on its front so that you've got the back facing you. And then you're just going to pull the 2 edges of your work together. And using obviously the same colour, this is why we've left long tails, so that we can use the same colour to tie in each section. So I'm literally just going to weave backwards and forwards, pull that through, and then again I'm going over the top and under, pull through, over the top and under, pull up, and again. And then that's obviously me at the end of my white section, so I'm going to go over and under this very last bit of my white section, and as I pull through I'm going to stop with a loop here. If you can see, I've got a little loop, and I'm going to pull that through just to make a little knot, and then I will just weave that tail up that white section and pull through, and then that white one there is ready to be snipped off. So that's the white done, and then you're just going to move on to the next section. So for me it is my red. So however big your section is, you would just continue that all the way down until you got to the end of it. And again, now I'm on my red now. I'm just going to thread through, and then I'm going to go backwards and forwards, over and under on my red section. Red stitches to get, and again before I pull all the way through, I'm going to pop my needle through that little loop there and pull tight, and then again I'm going to weave that up through the stitches where I've joined, and that's my red snipped off. So you're just going to continue to do that all the way around with all of your colours, and once you get to back towards the other end, that's where I will meet you and I will show you how to do this very last section and join it all together. Okay, so I've finished now doing all of my colours, and you can see that because we saved the tail end to tie them together, you can't really see a very noticeable seam at all. It's quite a nice finish. So you can see that I've got a gap here, and that's absolutely fine because it will pull together as we stitch it up. So I've got my extra long green tail now, so I'm going to thread this up, and first of all we're going to close the gap that's just here, just in the exact same way that we have been doing before. Now we're ready to start joining together. So you want to pull it around so that near enough meets, and then I'm going to join together to close up this gap just here. So I'm just on the side of my join, so I'm going to thread across to the opposite side. And I'm just going to do a couple of stitches backwards and forwards just to pull that together a little. Okay, so I've turned, and now I'm just going to stitch up this gap here just to close it, and again just in the same way that we have been doing for all the other colour changes. And I'm just going to weave that back to the top of the green. So that is my gaps between the edges of my green tied together. And now I'm just going to work my way around two sides. And again, pretty much just doing in the exact same way, but you can see that you've got the actual stitches that we could work into. So I'm going to thread it through the tops of those stitches over there and pull, and then again I'm going to go back to the stitches on either side and pull together, and again, and you're just going to keep working your way around, trying to work it as tightly as you can. And you can see that it's just pulling the green together. And you're just going to carry on doing that all the way around. So if you want to do that, and then I'll meet you when you get back towards the other side again. So I've worked my stitches all the way back round to where we started from, and I've just got a little gap here that I want to close up. So there we go. So again, I'm going to finish off in the same way as all the others now, by pulling through and then pulling through a loop, and then I'm just going to weave this tail around a little and back up the other way. And then I'm good to snip off. And so you can see the joins are all quite nice. loops, a little tail there, and when you turn it over, this is how we should be looking. So there will be a very slight seam on the green one that you stitched together, so it is this one here, but you can't really see it at all. And if you could notice it and it was driving you a bit crazy, then obviously you could make that the top and then cover that with the your ribbon or whatever it is that you're choosing to hang it with. But this tutorial was all about just how to do the crochet piece and how to do your colour changes, and then obviously how to attach it together to get the nice seamless finish on the back. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to know about any decorations or anything, then go and check out my Christmas series. There are snowflakes and stars and things that you could use to embellish your wreath. And also on my last wreath tutorial, which is the wraparound wreath, I do have a section towards the end in that tutorial about how to create a piece of crochet and attach it and make the hanging loop, and also how to do a nice bow for it as well. So you could always nip and check that out, but I will link it in the description box below. But that is it for this crochet wreath. I really hope that you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please remember to give me a quick thumbs up. But that's it for this one, guys, but I will see you again for another tutorial very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.